Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen,
And I'm John Johnson.
and you're listening to
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books.
the podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, both classic and new comics we want to read, and everything else in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books.
Today, we are doing our Patreon exclusively voted on episode.
Yes.
And so we gave our patrons
It's the new year, so we're starting off with new characters we've never done solo on the podcast.
Yeah, and what were those characters?
So we did Deadpool. We had where did I put the list?
It was Deadpool, Jonah Hex, The Mask, and Witchblade.
Witchblade, that's right.
So we've had Witchblade on those a couple of times. I don't know. I just feel like reading Witchblade, but
I don't know why. There's something about it.
I don't know. There's like a couple things about Witchblade that I just really enjoy. But anyway, we had a tie between Witchblade and Mask. So next month for our Patreon exclusive episode, we are going to do Witchblade.
Yeah. So keep ready for that. Keep holding out for that.
Yes, this month, because there was a tie, like we said, you guys voted. We're doing The Mask today, as in Jim Carrey's The Mask, not that shitty Cher movie. Actually, I don't even know if it's shitty. I just remember it was weird, like drama or whatever.
Yeah.
But so this is The Mask. It's smoking. That one. And
Somebody stop me.
Yeah, I think I've only seen this movie once when I was like, I don't know, on VHS as a child, probably.
Yeah, I remember watching it a couple times as a kid, and I have fond memories of it, but I haven't watched it as an adult for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. But what I do know is that this book, while not being anything like the movie, is exactly perfect for Jim Carrey. Like, this character in this book, I could picture Jim Carrey doing everything that this guy could do.
Yeah, even in the way the character is in this comic, which is like, you can see where they pulled things, but it's definitely different character.
Oh yeah, this is a definitely rated R, violent and other things book, whereas the much like a lot of movies that turn things into comics or turns comics into movies, or even like Ninja Turtles is like way more violent than the TV show. Right?
Oh yeah,
they don't need pizza, like let's just say they don't give a fuck about anything. They don't have different color bandanas and that. And this is much like that, where they took like he's zany, and then like made a kids movie with the premise of there's a guy who puts on a mask and he becomes the Mask, and whereas this is like the guy puts on the mask and then he murders everybody.
Yeah, you said the perfect word earlier. It's like they took the character in this that is like hardcore cartoon and like can kill people and made it the Looney Tunes version for the movie.
Or the reverse. Like this is the reverse of a Looney Tunes where when someone pulls out, Tommy guns and starts shooting and people get holes in them, they're like, oh, and they like pop the bullets back out. In Looney Tunes, that doesn't happen in this. The people die.
They're dead.
Except the Mask. The Mask continues being Looney Tunesy. If he gets shot, nothing happens. He survives, can heal instantly, no problem. But everybody else is just humans, and they fucking die, and it's pretty hardcore. So the creators of this book are John Arcudi and Doug Mahnke. Have you ever heard of these creators before?
No, not that I could recall.
Okay. I know I've read stuff by John Arcudi before. He wrote a lot of the Aliens comics.
Okay.
I think a lot of the stuff in the 90s was written by him. That was like the little mini series that they would release for Aliens. And then he's also done a bunch of BPRD.
Okay. So
like he's definitely written stuff I like. And so I was kind of like, I had faith that I was going to like this. And then the art, I know I've read stuff by Doug Mahnke, but I can't think of anything I've read.
This feels very like 90s too. Like the art style very much feels like that.
Yeah, and this is like an independent book that Dark Horse put out. So which makes sense that John Arcudi is writing Dark Horse books like Alien and BPRD and stuff, which is an offshoot of Hellboy. So if you didn't know that, that's the agency that Hellboy works for, is the BPRD. So this like fits into that. And honestly, I wasn't expecting much from this. I was like, I mean, they don't still make Mask comics, so I'm sure it was fine at the time. It had its little heyday. but it's probably not like anything to write home about. And I was fucking wrong. Like, I really enjoyed this book a lot. Like, I liked the character. I liked the way that the book is compared to like the movie and stuff. And I liked the progression of the mask itself through different variations of people, because unlike the movie, Stanley Ipkiss, who Jim Carrey plays, is not the main guy that wears the mask the entire time. He's the first person that we see wear the mask, but the mask goes through different people, different iterations, which I thought was very interesting. It was very cool to see, like, basically the mask takes things you want and makes them like emphasized and crazier, and take like if you hate someone, man, I wish that guy was dead. You put the mask on and you go kill that guy because you really want him dead now. And the same as if you're a cop and you put the mask on, you want justice. You want to get, kill the bad guys and stuff. So it's a very interesting thing where it takes everything up to 11 basically in your mind. And I think they're even like, we only read the first book of this, which is called just the regular Mask, I think, right? Mm-hmm. But there's like the Mask Returns, and then another one even in this trade paperback, which is like the Mask Omnibus, which is what we read this from. And there's just like ongoing, the mask takes new forms every time someone wears it. So it's kind of an interesting idea, and I like that better than one guy wears the mask, and that's Stanley Ipkiss the whole time. And then I know at the end of the mask that the bad guy somehow gets the mask on, and the dog wears it at one time too.
Yeah.
So like I know the mask switches faces, but in the movie, but like it's not nearly as pronounced as this. And we'll get into why the mask switches faces, but
no, and it's fun. The premise of that, I really feel like, that makes sense, and that's a cool way of like always being able to reinvent the character, because the mask, like you said, it just takes whatever the person's wearing, their like main goal of like that time up to 11. So you could really continue this, and the same thing with like the movie. I think there definitely was a Mask too. I don't remember what. I don't think I ever saw it.
Kennedy,
I think Jamie Kennedy. Yeah.
But I definitely never saw that. But.
No, but in general, especially after reading this, I'd be like, that's a really cool concept of like, almost like the One Ring or whatever, like moving from person to person, but obviously not on the scale of the
right,
movie,
not just the power scale.
Yeah, but well, it makes you invincible technically. The mask
it does, but it's not like I don't know. It's not quite as it's not as evil as, or it doesn't seem as evil as the One Ring or whatever.
It's not. I didn't double check this, but I assume it's not the god of mischief Loki's mask, is it?
I doubt it,
because I do remember that from.
Well, I would assume this would be like an African god or like a Nancy or something. Not.
Well, I just remember that from the movie. Is that it was the god of mischief's mask. It was Loki.
Oh, is it?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the only thing I remember from the movie.
Well, that's not in this first trade.
So, yeah,
so
exactly.
In fact, they don't say anything about the mask's origin in this trade.
Nope.
Like all they talk about, like the first thing that you were seeing is Stanley Ipkiss is going to an antique store, and he's like, "This will be great for my girlfriend," and he like just buys this mask, and he's like, "She's gonna love it for her collection." And Stanley Ipkiss is a big dork. He, like I said, early 90s Jim Carrey fits the bill for what this guy looks like. And it seems like he's just kind of a down and out guy most of the time. He buys the mask, and then as he's going to his car, some bikers beat the shit out of him because he says like, "Hey, watch where you're going," and then they circle around like,
"What?
Yeah, what'd you say to us?" And so like they beat the fuck out of him, and then as he's driving home, we see him like think about murdering all the first off beating, and then as he thinks more and more about it, eventually ends up with him murdering them, those bikers that beat him up. So as he's about to enter his girlfriend's house or apartment, actually, the mask says something to him, and he's like, "What?" The mask says, "So what are you waiting for? Let's go waste the Nazis." And he's like, "What? Like what?
What?
Am I going crazy or whatever?" So he just thinks he imagined it. But it is true. The mask is talking to him. He gives it to his girlfriend, and she's like, "This is great." And she just puts it on, the display wall or whatever with all her other shit. And then he wakes up in the middle of the night, and somehow the mask is on the toilet. Like, as he's going to take a piss, he's like, "What the fuck?"
What?
And he thinks his girlfriend's just messing with him. And he's like, "Oh, well, you know what? I'm going to scare her." Like, so he thinks, "I'm going to put the mask on and go into the bedroom and be like, boo." And he puts the mask on, and it turns out it takes over his face, takes over his personality. He officially becomes the mask on page 3 or whatever. So
yeah, and it was very quick. And I thought the way that they did the transition in the comic is really cool because the mask looks very kind of like glass or rocky. It's very like
it looks like it's made of
it.
clay or something, like dried clay.
And then it kind of like grows a little bit of tendrils when it goes around him, and then it kind of smooths out but still looks like around him. And then the features start to exaggerate until it gets to, the full like crazy cartoony,
giant teeth, big eyes, like. This must have been super fun to draw. Like, I imagine that's what like they were going for is we want to draw a character that just has literal like Looney Tune facial expressions. And so, like he puts the mask on, he becomes the mask, and he's like, okay, I got to go kill these bikers now. Like, that was his mission, right? That was what he was thinking about. So he climbs down the gutter, the gutters, right? That's what it is. So like the metal pipe that goes down from the roof. And he goes to where the bikers are, and he just starts beating people up. He takes a pipe. Oh, no, he takes a bat and just starts beating the fuck out of the people at the entrance. And they're at this, like, I guess is where bikers would hang out. It's a, like, auto shop.
Yeah.
And he just starts murdering everybody. And one thing I thought was interesting is he can just manifest things out of thin air. Like, which makes sense because, like, Looney Tunes, he'll reach inside his coat and he'll pull out, like, a giant hammer or an Uzi or whatever. And you don't even have to grab into his coat. He could just manifest in front of him an Uzi. But I think it's funny when he, like, for the visual gag, when he pulls out something really long. Kind of like in Batman, when Batman's flying his plane, like Batman 89, when Batman's flying his plane at the Joker, and he pulls out that long-ass gun from his pants. Just fucking hilarious. But, like, yeah, it's like that. We're like, where the hell did that come from? So he murders everybody inside of this garage, which they're all bikers. They're all assholes, so no one feels bad for them. And we get to see him, go crazy. Then it seems like, and this might be different than the movie. I don't remember this happening in the movie, but like I said, I haven't seen it very much. Once he accomplishes his mission for the night, the mask easily comes off, which I think in the movie it doesn't. Like, I feel like he has to fight it a lot more.
I feel like he had to rip it off.
Yeah, so like when he comes home, it's just like him sitting in the chair as his girlfriend wakes up in the morning, and she's like, where is he? And then she sees him sitting in the chair and the mask is off. So he just is like, oh, I couldn't sleep, so I came out here to watch TV. And yeah, it's like he just like takes it off whenever he wants, which is different than I think the movie. And I was not expecting that personally, because I thought it's going to like fully take him over. But it seems like, yeah, once he accomplishes what his mission was that night, he takes it off. No big deal. That's the first issue. So it ends right there. Pretty simple. He gets revenge on these bikers that were mean to him. But then the second issue starts in a very weird place. It starts with Stanley Ipkiss being militarized, I guess. It's been a month or something. They don't say how long it's been. I think it's a month is how long it's been. Which is interesting because that's how long it takes for a comic to come out. So a whole month of him having the mask on has made him basically like an incel, we'll say. Mm-hmm. He goes from like a very unassuming guy to like wearing military fatigues and
making a hit list.
Yeah, he's making a hit list now. Who's crossed off 4 people already besides the bikers. So in that month, he's already killed 4 more people at night. In the news, they're talking about, this Mr. Big Head going around and murdering people, the Big Head murders and stuff. So, like, Stanley is just, you could tell he's, like, becoming radicalized by the way he's, like, dressing. And also, he's got, like, Soldiers of Fortune magazine and, like, Mercenaries Today and shit. Like, he's like, definitely going all out on this. And also, his personality is changing towards his girlfriend. She gets mad that like he's changing, and she's like, what's going on? Like, a month ago you were fine, but then for some reason this whole month you've changed. And he gets so mad at her, he's about to like hit her, and then he has to like stop and pull back because he's like, oh, that's weird, like I've never wanted to fucking kill her before. But I think it is the influence of the mask like slowly working into him.
Yeah, kind of like overtaking his personality a little bit.
Yes. And then one of the like, and now he's killing people for like nothing. Like, it's one thing of the bikers that literally beat the shit out of him, but now he gets like a call about his car that was in the shop, and they're like, oh yeah, like you need more repairs. And then when we cut to the garage that his car is in, the guys are like, ha ha, this guy's a sucker. Like, oh yeah, we'll just make sure we like put a couple holes in his oil pan or whatever, so he's got to come back. And they're sleazy guys. But he takes a muffler, or like he appears at the shop as the mask, because he's already like ready to kill them before he hears them talking about how they're going to take advantage of him. So he was already going to kill them. And then we see him come up because they were talking about like how they're going to get him to buy a muffler like for no reason. And then we see the mask come up with a muffler in his hand. And he's like, I'm not going to pay a lot for this muffler. And then the next time we see these guys, the muffler is inside one of the, like he shoved it down one guy's throat, which I actually laughed out loud. I thought it was a pretty good visual gag.
Yes.
Where like this muffler is just like he opened the dude's mouth and shoved a full muffler down the dude's throat. And then now the skin of his face is around the muffler. So it's just, I mean, it's a sick, fucked up joke, but now there's this murder scene where we see what he did to these guys. And there's a cop. What's the cop's name? I don't remember his name.
The cop. So the girlfriend's name is Catherine, and then it's Police Lieutenant Kellaway.
Kellaway, that's right. So, like we said, the police are already on the case of, the big head guy that's been killing people. It's funny, no one says his head is green, right? Like no one mentions that part.
No, they just say the big head. And there's two little things that I thought were interesting. Is one is like, so when he goes out like to pick up his car there, he takes the mask, and the girlfriend's like, why are you taking the mask with you?
Yeah.
And he just walks out. And then he's like talking to himself at one point, and he's like, I'm going to, I should use my powers for good maybe. And like, I can like,
I'll do that tomorrow.
But first I got to kill so-and-so today. And then like but when he starts like hoping the underdog, or the people that are like, down on their luck, downtrodden or whatever, it's so random and like,
yeah. And it's stuff like he goes to his old school and goes into the classroom where his old elementary school teacher still teaches. She's an old lady now, and she, she's belittling a kid or something, and he comes in and crushes her skull in front of the class, and then says like, that's for ninth grade or like that's for fifth grade or whatever the fuck. Like, it's just so like he's just murdering people to murder them at points in this. So yeah, I just thought that was super interesting that he's killing people, and that's the difference of between the movie and this is, and he'll do zany things in the movie. He'll like tie someone up or make them spin around real fast in a cartoony way or something. But like in this, he's like, oh yeah, let me like help you with that, and he'll just smash their head with his foot, or like murder some kids because they were bullying someone. There's just things like that that are very interesting. In comparison to the movie, which I personally think this is like a better version, but obviously you can't make a movie, especially back in the early 90s, like a superhero movie like this. Even now, I don't know.
Is that about Blade kill people? But
Blade killed vampires. Blade killed vampires. And that was a rated R movie. So and also like, yeah, it was successful for the time, but it's not like successful now. You know what I mean? It's not like considered, I mean, it probably broke whatever it cost to make, but it wasn't like.
But yeah, it's not a hero movie now.
If it was, it would have already made like a sequel for nowadays Marvel movies or something. But yeah, so then we see like he's basically just coming home after killing people every day and going to bed, and then like his girlfriend finds the mask and thinks she's gonna hide it from him. This is the reason. For some reason, she knows like the mask is the reason why he's acting weird, but she doesn't know that, he's becoming a different person from it. So she tries to hide it from him.
Oh, she throws it away.
Yeah, she throws it away. And she tells him that, and he's like, what? And then they have like a nice heart-to-heart where he's like, I'm sorry, babe. I've been acting real weird, but like, don't worry, I'm going to change. And then in his mind, though, he's like, besides, I've already got everyone on my list. Like, he's just like going behind her back. He is like totally an asshole. Like, and the one thing I liked about this is you don't know if that's how he was always, because before he was thinking about killing those bikers, he just was thinking about it. But now that he has the power to do it, that's when he's doing all of it. So it's not that he wasn't crazy or an asshole before. It was just he had no way to make those things happen. So now that he does, he is, I guess, able to be the real him, you know? So it's very creepy and weird. But eventually, her and him, what was her name? Catherine, right?
Catherine, yeah.
Catherine and him have a falling out, and she kicks him out of the house. And he's so mad because he doesn't have the mask anymore. And he's like, oh, I got to get that mask back. So he decides to climb up the chute of the with the gutter rail again. And like, it's 4 stories up. And Stanley is not a muscular guy. So he's like climbing up. He's like, oh man, this was a lot easier going down, and especially as the mask. Yeah. Like, because he doesn't have the mask. So he goes up there and he's like, okay, she didn't throw it away. No way she threw it away. She must have hid it somewhere. So he starts snooping around. The window actually falls on him as he's getting through, and he yells out and wakes his girlfriend up, and she thinks there's someone breaking in. So she calls the police, and they're like, yeah, we'll be there as soon as I finish this sandwich. Like, that's another thing about this book. They really don't have a positive spin on the police at all in this, except Calloway, he's
the one good detective.
Kind of. I mean, obviously he's killing people and stuff later, but he's at least the one who seems to want justice the most. All the other guys just seem to be waiting for their pension, kind of thing. And so he's looking for the mask. She gets scared. She doesn't know it's him, of course, and she hits him on the head with a vase that she has, or a lamp, and knocks him out. And then as she's kind of like pulling him, when she realizes, oh my God, it's Stan, she's pulling him into like where the bedroom is. And then the police show up finally. And then she's trying to pretend like, oh, nothing happened. It was just my boyfriend. But like, if I was her, I'd be like, what the fuck? Because like, I kicked him out. I don't know what kind of...
Yeah, what is he doing here?
Why is he sneaking in the middle of the night? Is he going to murder me?
I did think that was a little weird. She's like, oh, it's fine. He was surprised me because he came in through the window. Also, he came in through the window.
Yeah, it's not like he knocked on the front door or came in through the front door with his key or some shit. He literally climbed 4 stories. That means he is a threat. Like he's trying to get in and out without people knowing that he's going in and out of there. So, yeah. So... in the meantime, while she's talking to the cops at the front door, trying to explain, oh, it's fine. I don't actually need you guys. It's just my boyfriend. He finds the mask hidden and puts it on and then becomes the mask. And as the mask, he's like, I'm going to hit her in the fucking face with a lamp. I'm going to smash her face and murder her with the lamp because she hit me with a lamp. So super fucked up, I thought. And he yells out to try to get the police to come back there. They do. This is the first time we see someone actually harm him. The cops shoot him in the head with one of their guns, and it doesn't do anything. And then the mask proceeds to start to try to murder all the cops, or the 2 cops that are there. Does he kill both of them, or does he get away? Does one of them get away? I think he kills both of them.
Yeah.
He kills both of them, but they're able to call for backup. That's what it is. So he's got their 6 shooters, and in the meantime, he's threatening his girlfriend. And then as the more cops show up, they're like, oh, it's a hostage situation with this big head guy. He just showed up randomly, and so they're going up the stairs, like not a SWAT team, but it's just like there's a lot of police officers going up the stairs, and he comes out with a bazooka because of course he can manifest a bazooka. And he says, catch, and then he shoots them and murders all of them. And then, it's just like insanity happens. There is a bit of slapstick comedy in this. Like, he gets to the cops and he's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. He like, slaps them and stuff and does that. But then he'll also just murder them or snap their necks and all that. So it's just craziness is going on. We see the first appearance of Detective Calloway, who is later on becomes very important. He's like the guy who's following this big head.
He's trying to crack the case.
Yeah, he's trying to crack the case. Who is this big head? So the mask eventually gets out of the building. He goes to the roof, and cops follow him, but he's able to murder those cops. And then all the other cops make it up the stairs with Calloway. and they fire on him all at once, and he gets shot by so many bullets that he falls off the roof. But like, he said, it's Looney Tunes. So yeah, you see blood and everything, but by the time he hits the ground, nothing happens. He's repaired.
By hit the ground, he doesn't even really hit the ground. As he's coming down and falling, he literally does that Looney Tune thing where it's like, and like turns on his own brakes to stop before he hits a car, and then like, jumps in the car and is like, I'm gonna steal this cop car.
Yeah, and so in the cop car is a guy who was already arrested earlier that night. So the cops, got this APB or whatever, like all cars, come to this address, and they already had someone that they had arrested, but they're like, oh, we'll just leave him in the back while we go inside. So there's like a guy who was arrested for whatever, a parking ticket or some shit, and he's now being driven around by the Mask. The Mask is, of course, driving crazily. And also, one thing that's interesting, and I wasn't sure if the Mask manifested this stuff or not, or if it was in the cop car, but the police are trying to chase him down on the roads now, and he's throwing grenades at them. So I was like, oh, did the cop cars have grenades in them? But I think it's probably him just manifesting what he wants,
Probably.
Because back then, I don't think cops had grenades. I'm sure they do now because...
Yeah,
militarized police. But, whatever. So yeah, like, the guy in the back is like, please stop, you're driving like a maniac. And then the Mask proceeds to just crash. And that dude is obviously dead. He's not wearing a seatbelt, and there's like a grate, in front of him, like keeping him from going to the front. So I'm sure you hit that going 80 miles an hour or whatever. Yeah. He's dead.
Scrambled brains.
Yes. So as that's happening, Detective Calloway's like, okay, well, I'm not part of that chase. I'm going to talk to the girlfriend, see what happened. So he's talking to Catherine, right? Catherine. And she's explaining what happened. And then as she's talking, she puts two and two together and is like, wait a second, Stanley, the Mask? Stanley is the Mask? Like, so like in her head, she's thinking this and she realizes what it was. And then she was bringing up the Mask. She's like, oh, he changed ever since the mask, and then he's like, what mask? And she's like, oh, nothing. It was just a gift, a gift that he gave me. And so then she realizes, okay, that's what it is. If you put the mask on, it must be making him go crazy. So like we said, he crashes that cop car. He mows down a bunch of people in the process, like a bunch of civilians that are just on the sidewalks and stuff. And it's pretty messed up. I was surprised he just murders people as he,
Well, he says that one guy, like, where's my $60? I don't know if it was someone who actually owed him money or he saw.
Oh, yeah, that's what it was. Okay, so it wasn't he's an innocent civilian, but it was actually someone that he was like, oh, that guy owes me $60. He should die because he hasn't paid me back. So, yeah, he kills that guy. And then he jumps, now that his car is totaled, he jumps on top of two other cops who are, they're in it more often, but they're not like, I can't remember what their names are. They're not that important.
Well, no, because that's Calloway.
Oh, is that Calloway?
That's Calloway and his partner.
Oh, you know what? I forgot. Okay, you're right. It's because every now and then they'll draw people more cartoony. And I'm like, oh, wait, who is that? So, yeah, that's Calloway and his partner. So now that they're like, okay, we got to follow up with this Mask guy, they join the chase. And so the Mask jumps on their car, and he pulls out a battle axe. And he starts singing, I've been working on the railroad. And he's like just chopping at the top of the roof. And they're freaking out, like, what the hell? And then he pulls out a flamethrower, and they run into like a police blockade where they stop, and then he flies off, and then he starts shooting everybody with a Tommy gun and a flamethrower.
I was waiting for the Cuban beat. I thought that this is going to happen here.
Right.
And
which is interesting that they kept, that's in the movie. And you would think, oh, that's like not real, right? He sings a lot as the Mask.
Yeah.
I could totally see them. They did a really good job capturing the character of the Mask, just not his violent actions or the repercussions from his violent actions.
Yes.
In the movie. But everything about this is totally Jim Carrey. Like,
oh yeah. I can't imagine now, and them making, if they were like, let's make a rated R Mask.
Yeah.
But it's for real. Like,
actually, they could now, probably because he's murdering cops and stuff. So, they could do that now probably, and it would be fine.
They're going to redo it like in the style of the Joker. But
yeah, there you go.
Mask.
There you go. Oh, wow. Yeah, that might be a little different, like a little too hard edge,
Yeah.
But It works for the Joker though, but yeah, I don't know. You might work. Oh, you know what you do? You get Jim Carrey now.
Yeah.
To take it up.
Just take it back.
Yeah. That would be interesting. Beard and all, just full beard mask. Yeah, but anyway, so the mask kills all these cops. I mean, they say later on that he only killed like 14 cops, but it looks like he murders maybe 100 cops in this scene, in this whole chase and everything. So he kills a bunch of cops. He shoots up all their cars. He eventually vanishes into the sewer and then comes back up somewhere, kills another cop that just happens to be next to the sewer. And he pulls off his mask. He goes back home and he's like, finally, get some rest. And as he's about to lay down on the bed, we see someone grab for the mask. And it turns out it's Catherine. She puts the mask on. She takes the gun and she shoots him. Stanley Ipkiss is dead. He's no more, which is interesting because that's the main character of the movie.
Yeah.
And would you say you didn't expect it, right?
No, I didn't. This is issue 2. And I was like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Like, is he really dead? No, he's really dead because, yeah, Catherine puts on the mask and then shoots him in the back while he's just Stanley. And I was like, holy crap. Like, what is going on here?
Yeah. So, and do you know if Catherine that's Cameron Diaz's character possibly in the movie, right? I don't know.
Possibly. I don't remember the name of her character in the movie offhand.
Yeah, I don't either, but I'm assuming that's who it was supposed to be.
Probably.
Yeah. So now she became the mask that night just to kill Stanley. But this is one of the things I thought was interesting is she's able, like you could just fight it, especially if you haven't worn it very much. She just takes it off now that that's done. And is like, okay, I want to know what she did with Stanley because they never say like, oh, did she like bury his body or something? Like, cause you have a murder victim in your house now or whatever. So, I mean, I guess you could say like, oh, he came back and he tried to kill me and it's self-defense. So, I mean, technically it was because he's fucking crazy, but yeah, like, she just decides to take the mask to the police station and be like, this is the thing that made him crazy. I know you don't believe me, but it's this mask. And as she's like bringing it in, she says, oh, I want to see Detective Calloway. 2 officers are escorting her and she's now talking to the mask because the mask is in her purse and she can like hear it and it's talking to her just like it was to Stanley before. And the cops are like, cuckoo, then we get like kind of the second story and like the second half of the story of this. Like her story isn't super in this too much. Like she had the mask for a second and then she hands it into the cops and she leaves it with Detective Calloway.
Yeah. I like that he's like, that's weird. Like, cause she tells her, she gives her what she thinks going on. And he's like, that's weird. Like, okay. And she's like, okay, but don't ever put it on. And he's like, he's like, why? He's going to like put it on.
Yeah. He's literally like about to put it on his face. She's like, no, what the fuck did I just say?
Do not put it on.
Yeah. Yeah. And also as she's going to his office before she gives him the mask, she sees some like mobsters that are getting out of jail. Their lawyers are getting them off with an easy charge and he's mad about it. And he's like, what the hell? Like you did so much more. Like, I can't believe you're just getting a slap on the wrist and getting out of here. So we see that like the police chief and everybody else in the station pretty much is bought and he's like the only honest cop. And he's getting real fed up with the amount of bullshit that like the corruption inside of this precinct, which I thought was interesting that he doesn't really go after any cops in this later on. But as you can probably tell, he's given the mask and he ends up wearing the mask and
he kind of starts just doing his own thing.
Yeah, he starts doing his thing. He puts it on, becomes the mask, and instantly one of the gags in this is he's like, oh my God, I wonder if okay, this is Big Head, obviously, and I wonder if I can kill, like if I could take anything as well. Like, can I shoot myself and it's okay? And he puts the gun to his head and he's like, oh, let's test my hand first, just in case. Like, I thought that was funny. He blows a hole through his hand instead of in his head. And he's like, yep, I don't feel any pain. Like, it's fine. So he verifies that he's invulnerable.
Yeah, he hits himself with a hammer a bunch of times in the head, too. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, and so then we cut to, like, the gangsters that are meeting. They're like, oh, so nice to meet you, Mr. Rapaz. Thank you for getting me out and all this stuff. Like, there's just... gangsters doing gangster shit. Basically, some guy got off for no reason. He should have been in jail, but he got off because, like we said, the corrupt system and the lawyers and whatnot and everything. So I was, the gangster part of this was kind of like whatever. Like there is like a little bit of like, oh, someone stole some heroin and whatever, but it's just kind of like wasn't that important to the story.
Yeah.
You just have to know, oh, there's gangsters in the background and they're doing shady shit, and eventually,
so they're probably gonna die.
They're probably gonna die. And I thought this was interesting because this is about halfway through this book, and it takes another 60 pages for him to finally get like revenge or like get justice on these guys.
Yeah.
Street justice. And and I thought it was going to move a lot faster just because everything else has moved a lot faster. I thought he's going to put the mask on tonight, go kill these guys, because we cut to them in a restaurant, and it seems like, oh yeah, it's perfect. You just walk in there and kill
That's
these
true,
guys.
exactly. I did expect him to walk through the door and just mow him down.
Yeah, but that's not what happened. Every time he goes out to, I don't know, I guess, hurt them, he runs into other people doing stuff, like breaking the law, and he decides, oh, I'll take care of these guys. So he runs into some guys like robbing a store, and he takes care of them. One of them is super fucked up. So the guys robbing the store, they're like, come on, grandma, give us the cash. And she's like, all right, I will. Here you go. And the guy that has the gun is like, all right, you did a good job. And I told you that I wouldn't kill you if you listened. And you didn't, if you cooperated. And you cooperated, so I'm not going to kill you. He is. And then his friend steps aside or steps to the side and shoots her with a shotgun and murders her. And then they run off to their car, and the guy in the car that's like the getaway driver, he's like, the car won't start. And they open the hood. And it's funny because, like, okay, cops are coming. They hear like, woo, 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 woo in the background. And they're like, oh, shit, like, we got to hurry up. And I would just leave the fucking car, like, at that point. But they're like, no, we got to open the hood, see it. And they still have their, like, nylons on their face and everything covering them. So they open the hood to see what's wrong. And the mask is actually inside underneath the hood, which is funny. And he comes out and he's like, you got to see what's wrong with this thing. It's your carburetor. And he takes the driver and he slams the driver's neck in the hood of the car. I thought, okay, he's for sure dead. But apparently he was just paralyzed. Because later on when the cops find him, they're like, oh yeah, that guy's paralyzed. The other two are dead. So that's nice of him to just paralyze the driver.
Paralyze him.
But yeah, like he just, kills them. And then the next time, this was like a gag that they definitely had in the movie. I remember this.
Yes.
Where they're running and he's just popping up randomly into the different places that they're trying to hide from him. And they run into this alley and the mask pops out in front of them and he's like, check it out. I can make balloon animals. And so he starts making balloon animals and he's like, look, a dog, look, a giraffe, look, a Tommy gun. And then and then it's a real Tommy gun, not a balloon Tommy gun. And then he starts murdering them and blows them away. So yeah, like that's what he does that night. Oh, that's the other thing. So the guy that broke his neck, we find out like a new power kind of from the mask because one of the EMS guys that has him in the back of the ambulance, there's two guys. One of them is administering like, the IV or whatever. And the other guy is just there and he's like, oh, are you okay? And the guy's like, yeah, I can't feel anything. And then as the dude is kind of, the guy giving the IV, his back is kind of turned and the other guy in the car injects him with like a tranquilizer and he's like, what? Huh? And he passes out. And then the guy that did that removes his face and it's the mask inside of this dude's face. So it's like, I don't know if that was a person he skinned and wore his face or he can just manifest like different faces over his own body.
That he still rips off like it's a flesh mask.
Yes, it looks like he rips it off and it is someone like he's wearing a human skin over his skin. Yeah. So, and he goes, remember me, to the guy whose neck he broke. So we're assuming that guy's fucking dead now because he spent he took the effort to go into the ambulance and surprise him like that. So in the meantime, we're hearing stories in the news about Big Head still being around, still causing trouble, and Catherine's like, hey, what the fuck? Like, I gave you the mask.
I told you not to wear that mask. And he's like, what? What are you talking about? I've never worn the mask.
Yeah, mask? What mask? What are you talking about? And so she knows he's wearing the mask. Also, Calloway's getting mad because he is not getting his due, he thinks. Obviously the police commissioner is corrupt. And so every time he busts anybody, and like he failed to get Big Head the first time, right? Because that was Stanley. No one caught Stanley. So, and then now Big Head shows up again. So they're like, oh, you failed. And so he's got this hanging over his head that he failed to capture the mask, and the mask killed a bunch of cops. And then now there's the mask running around again, but now he's killing bad guys and kind of making Kellaway himself look bad as a cop, but they don't know he's doing it at night. He's the one doing it. So Kellaway's walking around once again at night and saves an Italian guy from a bunch of gangsters that are going to steal his truck. I thought this would be considered possibly racist now. I don't know, like he does like an Italian accent when he's talking to the guy who's like, I don't know what's going on. Like, it's very...
What are you talking about? That's the only people that it's okay to be racist against.
Right, sure.
It's the only thing that seems culturally acceptable still. There's all these different ones, but then for some reason it's okay to do like the talking like this and then put your hands like up. This,
and so yeah, like that's he saves the guy, and this is one of the first times that we see him save someone, and like that person doesn't get killed or anything. Like there's obviously the mask hasn't corrupted Kellaway to where like, oh, he doesn't care about, or like there's no like double, like I thought there was going to be like, but you ran a stop sign or something and like murders him. But no, he just walks away singing zippity doo dah. And then the Italian guy's like, oh, thank God. Like, you know, like, mamma mia. Like, so yeah, it's just an interesting thing. Like that's the first time we see him actually do something good, potentially.
Yeah.
You know, the mask, I'm saying, not Kellaway. But then like we get like the showdown with some bad guy, you know, it's the bad guy that got off earlier. He's doing some bad stuff. He's making people OD that could talk and that we're going to talk to the police about him. So he's just trying to show up, not having to go back to jail. He's taken out people who he thought were the rat that got him into jail in the first place. And the cop, Kellaway, is trying to, you know, make that stop. He keeps seeing these murders happen from this guy that he wants, you know, behind bars. And no one seems to give a fuck. Everybody's just like, yeah, whatever, we'll catch him or we won't. Anyway, where's the donuts? Like they talk about donuts many times in this.
Yeah, very much so.
In regards
Lots of food.
Yes, in regards to the cops. So at the very end, like finally, the mask is I guess on the trail of the guy. Like he finally gets to the point where I thought was already going to happen in the restaurant, where he gets to the guy that, you know, is offing people because they are rats potentially, and he's like, okay, I'm going to kill this guy. So that guy's standing in a doorway. He's selling drugs, but he's only got one little baggie on him, and so this guy comes up out of nowhere, and some bum comes up. It looks like a bum, or goes up to this guy who's standing dealing drugs, and he's like, hey, you got anything? And the guy's like, I'm not for you. I'm just standing here. And then the guy pulls out a gun and says, you know, give me everything you have. And he sees there's only one little baggie. So he's like, oh, that's smart. You only get caught for possession, not for dealing. And then as this fight, or as he's talking with the gun in the dude's face, the dude seems pretty confident, because what the guy with the gun doesn't know is that the bodyguard is walking up behind him.
Oh, yeah, his muscle's there.
Yeah. And he grabs the guy with the gun by the neck and he throws him. But it turns out the guy with the gun was actually the mask incognito. And this does not go well for the bodyguard, who gets shot in the stomach a bunch of times. And yeah, like he doesn't get killed. I don't know. He gets electrocuted, which I thought he would fucking die. This is this is something I know. What? 480 volt electricity go into this fucking light. You know?
Well, I think that it was one of those things, like he gets shot, but since he's supposed to be like a big, strong, tough man, he still gets up and still starts.
Yeah, but he gets fully electrocuted.
Well, that's different, because he gets electrocuted.
That's what I'm saying.
He dies there.
He does it because he appears later on.
Oh.
Yeah, he shows up later on.
Okay, well then maybe he has something special about him.
I don't know, but maybe that's one of the Looney Tunes things happening or something. I don't know. But anyway, the bodyguard either gets taken out, whatever. The main guy is like, oh shit, my bodyguard's gone. I gotta run. And finally, he gets cornered by the mask, and he's like, I'll give you anything you want. I'll give you money, whatever, you know, drugs, whatever you want. And the mask is like, nah, it's fine. And then the mask like throws a cigarette at him. And the guy's like, whoa, that was close. Like, I guess he didn't want to kill me. And then it turns out, and I thought this was a little weird, the cigarette is actually a bomb, and it explodes, and I believe it kills the guy, right? Like that's
No, it's an explosion, but you see the glasses and then like an eyeball fly.
Oh yes, so he
definitely
fully dies. Yeah, and in the meantime, like Calloway is, like he's getting more and more tired every morning. He wakes up. People are also like, I would think you would figure it out by now because no one knows that like everybody that hears about Big Head just assumes he's a guy in a mask. They don't, unless you see his antics, you don't know that he's taking bullets and not dying and stuff. So you might put two and two together if you're a fellow detective saying, wow, Calloway has been sleeping in a lot. All these things, all these murders have been happening at night. He's not acting the normal, that he had been, like maybe Calloway is the mask, but no one puts that together. But he does get brought up because he gets suspected for foul play potentially because some heroin is missing, and that was actually stolen by the DA's assistant.
Yeah.
The assistant DA stole it because he's working in the background for this guy that just got blown up, and so like everybody's kind of looking at Calloway as like a potential bad, dirty cop, and the press is actually like pretty on him about this. And it's funny because like he's the only like not dirty cop technically.
Yeah, it's so weird that he's like kind of like became the like maybe it's because the other cops are so dirty and he's so good. He's kind of starting to become the fall man. It looks like for everything.
Yeah, but anyway, the like head of the family that the guy that got off and got blown up, that the head of that crime family is now like, we gotta kill this mask fella, and so the mask now has. Like the mission of, okay, I gotta find out who's black, who actually stole the heroin and stuff. And then two, who's like the big boss behind this. And so he goes on a rampage, like tracking down people, trying to find info on where can he find everybody, who's the big bad. And eventually he does. He finds who the big bad is. He ends up tracking them down to a restaurant. He murders all of them. In very hysterical and funny ways. He bakes a cake to lure some of the fat bad guys in to the kitchen, and then he takes them out one by one, which I thought was pretty funny. Like, he bakes a cake in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And they're like, what's that delicious smell? And let me walk into this room. And and then they get like shot up to hell. So yeah, there's like, just craziness at this restaurant. Like basically, it was like a hostage situation. So all the news people are outside. And Calloway showed up and was like, I'm going to take these guys on. That's before he turned into the mask. He walks into the restaurant. He's like, I'm going to go in there by myself, unarmed, and save these people. He's trying to get back his prestige as a cop. He puts the mask on and does the cake thing and everything. And then, so all the people get shot that are supposed to get shot, and everybody that's supposed to be unharmed is unharmed. So he actually pulls it off like he's supposed to. And then he comes out, and he's like, yeah, I saved everybody. And his fucking police chief fires him. He's like, we don't need none of that vigilante, single guy who can take on everybody in our police station. We want team players. So he fires him. And of course, this is not good for Calloway. He's like, what did I do? Like, I tried to do my best, even with the mask, I kept it in check and everything. But then as he's finishing and he's walking home, of course, Catherine is there waiting for him saying, where the fuck is my mask? Like, you're not supposed to be wearing it. And I thought this was like a good little thing that they did. He's like, fine, like, I'll give it back to you. I don't even want it anymore. He's kind of accomplished his mission. So he gives it to her and he says like, all right, we're going to lock it in your desk, right? It's her desk, right?
Yeah, it's her
Okay,
desk.
so I'm going to lock it in your desk. You take the key. And if I need it, like if I think there's a case that I need the mask for, I will call you and tell you what it is, and then you can deem whether it is actually a reason to remove the mask or not. And she's like, okay, that seems pretty fair. She's fully not intending him to use it ever again. But then we see that guy it's the guy that got electrocuted.
That's right.
He shows back up. He's got like a new face or something. I don't know. He's got like a face that looks way more fucked up than before. And he's murdering people. And so the Calloway's like, oh, he's murdering people, and then also like he gets arrested, and now the DA is on his side trying to get him out of the charges or whatever. I don't know why the DA would be like a defense lawyer.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense, but the DA should be like, no. You know what? The DA in here is saying, you know what? We'll only like prosecute him for like 1 to 3 years and we'll let him off for good behavior. So he is not acting like the guy's lawyer. He is acting like the DA, but he's basically giving these guys super light sentences.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it just shows that he's corrupt too.
Yeah. So, and then because of that, you know, we hear this, and also Kellaway figured out, okay, the assistant DA is corrupt now. We know this 100%. He needs to die. So he calls Catherine and is like, all right, I know what I need to do. Can I use the mask? The DA's bad. I need to bring him in. And then she's like, well, thank God he doesn't have the key to that drawer, or else I might be worried he'd use the mask for this. And then she's about to call him, and she does call him, and is thinking that like, oh, you know, you need some time to cool down.
I can talk him out of it.
Yeah, we'll talk, I'll talk him out of it. And as she's ringing, or as the phone is ringing, we're seeing in her office, the mask has been chopped out with an axe. So he came in and just fucking took it.
Yeah.
So the assistant DA is in his car. The mask shows up, punches through his window, drags him all around the police station, holds him hostage, and then proceeds to go to the guy's office I guess it's the DA's office. Where yeah. So he goes to the guy's actual office and is like, okay, where's the hidden documents? Like, obviously you're going to have dirt on you somewhere. And then he sees an American flag on the wall and he's like, really? Behind the American flag? And he pulls the American flag off and there's a safe there. And the guy's like, no, I swear I didn't know it was there. That's like, well, that was here before me. Like, surely I was not the one who put this in there. And so the mask gets he manifests a jackhammer and he hammers through the wall. I also like that when he manifests the jackhammer, he puts on like, a wife beater worker shirt or whatever. And like, he looks like he's actually like a worker for.
I'm working here.
Yeah, I'm working, We're jackhammering the street or something. And, and he gets all the evidence he needs to leave on the desk. He ties up the DA for the cops. He doesn't kill the guy, which I think shows restraint, that he's a good cop. And he leaves the heroin that he found in the safe, a bunch of money that was like payola from the cartel, and then a diary or a book that's like, this is why I am a dirty cop or whatever, like step 1, money or whatever, like whatever incriminating evidence it is in a book. So the cops find the assistant DA tied up like that, so now they can arrest him. Which I was like, I don't know if they could arrest him because, I mean, I guess it's a crime scene and they had a probable cause to go in there, but could you use that as evidence against someone that you find tied up? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
It might not work. I don't know.
We have to ask, because Batman leaves people tied up. It's like, there you go.
Yeah, but Commissioner Gordon ain't necessarily playing by the rules, is he?
That's true.
So, so then the mask shows up in front of the cops again because now he's going after his boss, I guess, right? Like his boss has pissed him off by firing him, and he's fed up with not getting the credit that he deserves. So all the cops are out in front of the DA's office, and he shows up. The head cop, the commissioner, I guess, is there. He actually chops the commissioner's car in half, and he starts chasing him around with an axe. And then he even does he actually kill his boss?
Yeah, I think he kills the boss, but he doesn't kill his partner. He almost does.
Yeah, all we see is the boss running away and him saying, "Come back here, you flabby eunuch," like he's gonna chop his dick off or something. I don't know. But then we see, oh yeah, that's what it is. He's running away, and as the mask is gonna chase him, his partner, who doesn't know that it's him, is like, "Hey, stop!" And then he decides to go mano a mano with the mask. He's like, "Oh, you got weapons, but can you do fisticuffs?" And like they do a punch off. We'll call it.
You son of a bitch.
You son of a bitch.
Yeah. Then they have the fight from They Live.
Yeah. Well, it's not as long as that.
No, that's true.
Yeah, it is like big punches and stuff. And then the mask is going pretty crazy. He's super powered, obviously. So he's like, "You think you're a big man? Huh? I'll show you who's man enough." And then as he's about to light a stick of dynamite, actually he does light the stick of dynamite in his friend's or his partner's mouth. He realizes what he's doing. He's like, "Oh my God, what am I doing? Like, this isn't me. It's the mask. You're nothing but trouble." And then he takes the dynamite out of the guy's mouth and he throws it down the street, and it explodes. Actually, he explodes, right, as the mask?
I think it's made to, like that he exploded.
So he runs away with the dynamite, and then he explodes, and then there's just like bits of the mask left on the ground. But he does live.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, so then we cut to Calloway's house, and Catherine shows up. What?
I just assume that's supposed to mean, like, because it was in front of, like, a cop that was there, that, like, oh, maybe the mask is gone.
He's dead now, yeah. That's how he's using to get out of it. So Catherine shows up at Calloway's house, very angry that he says he cut into her desk with an axe and stole the mask. And then we cut to the basement where he's inside of his house, and he has dug a hole in the floor, in the concrete floor, and then put the mask in the hole and then covered it with concrete. So that is the end of it. Like, we leave it there. I will say I read a little bit more.
The next one is called The Mask Returns.
Yes. Well, I read a little bit more, and it literally picks up right after this.
Oh, nice.
Where the head gangster who didn't get killed, like the head guy, is like, we got to kill this cop. We don't like him or whatever. And they show up at his house like immediately after this.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, oh, fuck, I need the mask. And he runs down there, and as he's breaking into the ground, they shoot him and he dies.
Oh, gosh.
And then they have the mask. So I'm assuming that's where you get like the bad guy having the mask. So
nice, okay. Yeah, that's fine. And see, I think that's the cool concept of this. And like I could totally see them like revamping and redoing this, coming back. And if that's how the main crux of the story is that this mask just gets transferred from one person to another, like you could do so much. So many things you could do from that.
Yeah, I actually want to buy these now, like, because this was so fun, and I did not expect it to be that. Like, I was just like, whatever, it's one of these 90s titles. We'll see. People, I mean, I've never heard anyone talk about it. So, and in fact, the only reason why I brought it up for this poll was because you said, oh, let's do ones we haven't done. And I just saw a YouTube video from Casually Comics that was talking about this like a couple months ago. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And then I was like, oh, let's do it on this. So, that's why it even came to my head, because of that. So, so John, that's the end of this. What would you give it? What'd you think about it?
I will definitely say this makes me definitely more intrigued to check out some more of these oddball characters from the 90s. Like, I definitely now I do want to go into the ones I saw on stands as a kid. It was like I didn't know that this wasn't technically for kids, but I would have been, like, oh, that's cool. I'll pass for now, though.
Yeah.
Like, I want to go back and definitely check out.
Well, I can tell you, probably most of the other ones are not as like good as this.
But I'm still curious.
You suggested Barbed Wire, which was a 90s movie as well with Pam Anderson in it, which I've seen.
Comics better.
Maybe it is. I don't know. So, I mean, maybe we'll do like a 90s, or like 90s movies characters that aren't big,
Yeah.
What we were talking about, there was The Tick, of course.
The Tick, yeah.
Time Cop is apparently.
Yeah, Time Cop was one, yeah.
Yeah, and some of them I can't find. Like, I really want to read Men in Black because I didn't even know that was a comic until like a couple years ago.
Yeah, I didn't know it was a comic first.
Yeah, it was a comic first, and it's completely like out of print and unable to find. So, like, it's not available digitally or anything. So I might have to find like a bootleg of it or something somewhere.
Oh, that's wild, yeah.
But yeah, stuff like that. I think it'd be fun to go through some of those movie properties that aren't quite up to snuff, I guess, or it's like when everybody back in the day was like, kind of like now, where comic books, like with Batman, started getting movie stuff, and people are like, what other stuff? Yeah, they just start buying everything. Like, maybe Barbed Wire will be a hit, and it wasn't. And then
The Shadow.
The Shadow, yeah. Oh God, that's terrible. Although The Shadow has a bigger pedigree than these do.
Yeah.
But yeah, The Shadow was a terrible movie. We just watched that for movie night, and it was.
I know. I'm sad I missed that one. I know The Phantom is one that I remember liking the movie in the.
I still like the movie.
Yeah,
Billy Zane.
Yeah, it's hard to not like Billy Zane. So.
Yeah, and that's also a pedigree character too. Yeah. Like, those are old pulp characters from the 30s, so, or even like the 20s maybe. So those are a little bit more pedigreed than some guy who decided to make a big-titted comic called Barbed Wire, and release it in the 90s, 1992 or whatever.
Witchblade. I'm pretty sure wasn't there a TV show Witchblade for a bit.
Yeah, that was a TV show for sure. I actually watched it with my grandma a couple times because the show wasn't nearly as. It was like a police procedural with like a magic weapon in it.
Okay.
She did not get full. Unfortunately, she did not get full Witchbladed out with the the suit covering nothing but the areolas of
yes. The areolas and one arm.
Yes, exactly. So, hey, you know what? If you want us to read it, we'll read some cheesecake. We should do one. We should do a poll with like cheesecake.
Just cheesecake.
Yeah. but yeah, so we could also do one with beefcake later. So
I'm down.
We're equal opportunity cake. You know, everybody likes cake.
Everybody likes cake.
Yeah.
So going back specifically to the mask now, like you said, it was much more entertaining than I thought it would be, and having the only reference in my head of like from what I remember from the movie and it being zany, it blew me away that this was so violent and so and so many people died in this.
Yes.
So yeah, I liked it a lot. I think the art was really fun. It very like I said, very 90s kind of gruff at points, and the kookiness of the mask. Like you have like kind of everybody kind of like normal-esque characters, and then the mask having like Looney Tunes moments where he's like stopping on a dime with his like imaginary brakes that he has, or like he's like the balloon animal part, like just right out of that, again something I remember from the movie, but like making the balloon animals, and then the last one and it's a real Tommy gun. Like that was really fun, and it was really nice, and it was cool in comic form, like seeing it like that, like it translated well to the page or from the page. So it was nice on page. So I would say I really enjoyed it, way more than I thought I would. So I think that kind of bumps up my score for this. So I'm going to give this one a 7.
A 7.
Yeah, it was a really solid comic.
Yeah, I'm going to give this a 7 too. I could not put this book down. Like I was like, all right, let's read this thing, and I just started reading it, and then continued to read it, and then before I knew it, I was like, oh shit, I'm already like 100 pages into this. Like it didn't feel like that at all. And so it's not a very wordy comic or anything, and the story's pretty straightforward and simple, except I like that because you get different people wearing the mask, it changes the flow of the story. It also like makes it new every time, almost every issue is different because of that. And even the parts that you would think would drag on where like he's going after the mob guy, but he keeps running into other criminals every night. You would think, oh, I just want to get to the mob guy. It just builds up suspense, and you get to see the things that like the new power of him being able to wear someone else's face or put on someone's face or whatever. I don't know if that's a power, or if it's actually him ripping people's faces off. I don't know. But
yeah, it's true. We don't get that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a power or not, but yeah. Technically, he could manifest a face, right?
I'm gonna say since he manifests other things, he just manifests their face.
Yeah. So
it's not quite as
it's not quite as graphic as that. So, but yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. I think it was super fun. I almost want to say like anybody who thinks that The Mask is like, or didn't know about it, or just remembered it, it's just some silly movie from when I was a kid. If you like comics, this is totally a great comic book. Like, so yes. I would highly recommend this. I'm going to give this a 7.5 because I enjoyed this completely. I think anybody who likes comics and also, it's something different. Like, I don't think I've ever read anything quite like this. There's extra violent stuff that I read, but it's not like this, that Looney Tunes aspect of it. And also just you could totally see or feel Jim Carrey being able to, like, you just impose his personality over the mask from the comic, and it works totally. You can imagine him doing all that, acting out the crazy, facial expressions and emotions and everything, and even the singing and all that. It just works really well. And I'm actually like, I want to go back and watch the movie now, because like maybe it's way better than I thought now that I've read the comic. It won't be as violent, I know that, but it captured the soul of the comic, I think, with the actual mask himself. So, or itself, I guess, because it's multiple people, not all men. So, I'm going to give it a 7.5. So with that, we'll say next month is Black History Month, and we always tend to do that stuff. So the first podcast of the month, we're going to read a book called Incognegro that is about a murder that happens in the 50s. Or I don't know if it's a murder. It's someone, or a black person is on trial for a murder in the 50s in Mississippi, and their relative, who is passing for a white person, he's like light skinned enough that he can pass for white in the North, is coming down to cover the story, I believe, in Mississippi. And so he has to pass in the South. So he's like got to hide that he's
so he can uncover the real truth behind what happened.
And he's incognegro. That's why it's called that. it's like incognito, but he's pretending to not be black. So that's an interesting story. It's got a lot of accolades. This actually came out when I was working at the comic book store. I don't think I ever read it though, but it was a Vertigo book, I think, originally. So if not, it was some other maybe Top Shelf or one of those other indie presses. But I've heard it's really good, so we're gonna check that out for the free podcast, and then we're gonna do a vote on some stories about African American characters that we haven't ever touched on before, and that's gonna be the vote for Patreon. So if you guys want to vote on that, it'll be patreon.com/Planes, Trains, and Comic Books. You can join at any tier, and you'll get to vote on that second podcast of the month. And speaking of our patrons, we should say thank you to our patrons, Otaku Mike, Hoku, and Christian.
Thank y'all.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. You keep us going. You keep the lights on, and you keep hope in our hearts, So, and then also, we do a Patreon exclusive podcast every month. And this month, which is going to be next week, the exclusive podcast is... What is it, John?
Scooby-Doo
Apocalypse. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a random one we picked. We just were like, wait a second. We're just scrolling. What should we do? And this one came up, and it just struck both of our fancies. And it struck my fancy because this is when DC, I guess, got the comic rights to Scooby-Doo. Or they still have the comic rights, but they were like, you know what? Let's try to make a more adult version of Scooby-Doo. Something a little bit more like those movies that came out when I was in high school, like Zombie Island, Scooby-Doo and stuff. They're a little bit more mature than the TV show, right? I believe they are, at least. I don't think they're super violent.
They're both James Gunn films, so.
I'm talking about the animated
zombie.
Zombie
Okay,
Island.
well, the second one, they have that island. I don't remember. It's not zombie.
I don't fucking know. I didn't watch the Scooby-Doo live action movies.
What? Oh, you're missing out.
Yeah, I've never seen them. So
the first one is it's good.
I'm not a big Scooby-Doo fan necessarily.
What?
Well, okay, for live action, I don't care about the live action stuff. I liked the animated movie, the movies that came out was Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. I thought was fantastic. Some of those other ones that came out around the same time I thought were good.
Oh, so I grew up watching the reruns, but of my favorites were Scooby-Doo, where every episode he met a weird celebrity.
Oh, okay, yeah, right.
Those were always fun.
Well, I think the difference between the Zombie Island one and the other movies that came out between the TV show from the 60s and 70s or whatever, I guess it was the 70s, was that the monsters are real in the Scooby-Doo movies that came out when I was in high school. So that made it a little bit more mature. So I'm assuming that this is the same thing where it's Scooby-Doo Apocalypse. The apocalypse has happened. I don't know what the apocalypse is, but Scooby-Doo and the gang are on it. So it just seemed fun, and we're going to read that. And then since we had 2 poll winners this time, we had The Mask that won for this episode, and we had Witchblade that won as well, tied at least. We're going to do that next month's Patreon exclusive podcast. So you get what you want. With us, we try to give you exactly what you want, requested. So yeah. So next week we're going to release
It's definitely not because Matt really wants to read Witchblade.
Look, hey, if they want it, they get what they ask for. Who am I to deny them the super hot Witchblade in a barely there costume? In fact, we should read the manga Witchblade because that is even more titillating.
More, wow.
As you can imagine, they give her a couple cup sizes extra in the manga version of anime or of Witchblade. So, but yeah, I'm just joking. We're gonna read the original trade of Witchblade from the 90s, the original 6 issues or whatever the first story arc is, which I'm sure will be great because it's a original. The first line of Image books, which all of those are written fantastically. I'm being sarcastic.
I was he said sarcastically.
Yes, so they're probably. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I enjoy Spawn for what it is. We've read that, but it's not necessarily like Shakespeare. So I'm assuming this will be one of those kind of books. But the art should be fantastic because it's by Alan Silvestri. Alan? Something Silvestri.
Alvi?
No.
Alvin is Alan?
Silvestri is his last name.
Okay.
I think it's Alan. Yes, I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure.
We'll make sure
I'm having a brain
correct,
fart.
yeah.
Either way. But yeah, so that's going to be next month's exclusive Patreon podcast. So if you would like to join that, once again, go to patreon.com/Planes, Trains, and Comic Books to get all these exclusive goodies and to vote on what's going to be the second episode of each month.
Gives you a voice in exactly one of the podcasts that we do a month. So definitely take it.
2 of the podcasts.
2 of the podcasts. That's right. Well,
no. You get an exclusive one.
You get exclusive, but it gives you a voice to choose one you want to hear specifically. So
yes.
Definitely take advantage of that.
Yeah. So anything else we need to cover, John?
No, I think we got it on this one, man.
All right. So with that, we'll see you guys in the next one.
On the next one.
Bye.